Hello, this is Tower of Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So my introductions. Feedback is greatly important. Feel free to either reach out to me through email, Substack, and of course, the social media. Well, Substack, what I was saying with Substack is sort of like social media or X. And of course, fill up those comments in YouTube. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. So audio platforms, some of them that I'm on, Spotify. Well, before Spotify, Spreaker. Appreciate everything with Spreaker. Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Deezer, just to name a few. Okay, so this is the continuation of what I was talking about on Monday. So Monday, I focused in on purses. So in this episode, I'm going to first talk about the article that I was talking about that had this, feminism bent about purses, and then lead in about handbags to differentiate between what purses are and handbags are. And this all leads to me talking about fashion in the month of January, where I'm going to talk about different aspects. But the big, ring show here, or tentpole here, main attraction here, and, everything else that goes in between that is MTV's House of Fashion. And I'm going to get into that next week. All right, so here we go. Okay, so I'm going to lead in with my thoughts here. So, about this article that I'm about to talk about, and my thoughts about the aspects of purses, handbags in general. So, to each his own with everything. But, again, this reiterates the ideas of what a society thinks about and how they feel about themselves and so forth. So, it goes to the old adage about that whole linking to the Sigmund Freud, even though he was ridiculous and widely unaccredited and just, strange. But the concept is interesting to, linger in your mind. So with that concept that comes out of that, of a rejection of not seeing everything, not taking everything too seriously. So, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar here. And so what I mean by this is, sometimes, when you're taking a purse and a handbag, it's just a handbag. It's just something that's utilitarian, that's used for everyday practical use. You need it, for instance, a woman like myself, I'm a mom. So, it's useful for me to either carry a tote or an overlarge bag. Now, when I was single, I liked handbags, particularly because of either wearing handbags that were leather looking, or in general handbags like that, because I got a lot of use out of it. I could put my wallet or my coin purse here, put different items here, and then it's even more useful to me now since I'm a mom, and since I'm not single, I'm married, but since I'm a mother here, I have all the different compartments for the things that my children need. I can efficiently and quickly get the things out that I need to get out. Small purses are a cute, neat, as far as going out on the town or something, or doing things like that. But for me, my staple, my go-to here is large handbags here. And so you gotta take it for what it's worth. And then what's so wrong with that, with the aspect too? You take it for what it is. That's on you. If you find more substance and gloating what you could buy versus the reality situation of the substance of, there's more important things than that. And, if that's what you suck your focus around in on, that's a shallow life, but, that's something to think about. But on the other reality of that, there's nothing wrong with working hard and then also appreciating the value and quality things, and appreciating the value in how you look. And I think those things go hand in hand. And then that's the strange combination with fashion. A lot of times, that marker gets mixed with all, especially now, even more so now, it's what's constantly trending. But, before then, in the early 2000s on back, was this thing about how bold can I be with the reins and the realms in fashion, to get the most attention there. That's something to think about. All right, so with all this said, I'm going into the article with JSTOR about purses. And of course, the sources that I'm reading from, let me slow down here so you can hear what I'm actually saying. Okay, let me say that again. And of course, the sources that I'm reading from will be provided for you in this episode. Okay, so it's by JSTOR, as I said. So I found out about JSTOR when I was in college. They have very interesting things, and particularly from the scholarly perspective, is particularly from my introduction, is literary scholarly peer review things. But this time they have more along the line of writing an article about the aspects of history with purses. And so it's quite interesting, and it's something to also think about too, with the aspect of scholarly reviews, peer reviews, and the aspects of why is it that most of the times in these analysis of things, specifically if it has to do with the realms, now even more so, even shockingly with that with science and things of this nature. But, I'm focusing in on this JSTOR here. Why is it that most of the time it has to do with being radical and thinking there's no sort of objectivity about anything? And that's very, those things linger in my mind. So I'm going to get on my soapbox here a little bit here and then just get right in. So, me going into college, it was all these things about, speaking out against and, becoming more and more prevalent. I was in the early stages of this mentality of being more anti-establishment than the norm, or being more underground than the norm, more along that nature. And so, me just being not, objective to that, and just saying, well, that's a heavy grinder. Most of the time, not very popular. But, it's one of those things to even, being post all of that, and then, having my life and everything. It's just very interesting how these ideas really, really circulate in a collegiate level, when you would think that this is about actually pursuing higher learning and seeing other points of views. But now you see how, these things can link themselves into indoctrinating the youth with college, and how that's really true when people were talking about the naked communism, how, with Marxism, where, we want to infiltrate through media, through the schools, and so forth. So, with all that said, here we go. It's a mini history of the tiny purse. So, it says Balenciaga. It says, blame the Balenciaga IKEA bag when the $2,145 luxury lambskin version of the familiar blue plastic shopping bag appeared on the runway in June of 2016. It was the beginning of the end of the glorious era of spacious hobo bags, boat totes, and local bags. So the upscale counterfeit triggered a backlash against fashion's flirtations with so-called poverty chic, but also against gigantic bags in general. So from the 19-gallon capacity, there was nowhere to cut but down. So even Meghan Markle, now that's not aging all that well. She really showed her true colors there, so to speak. So, whose first official public appearance with Prince Harry spiked scales of affordability with a leather day market tote, took up her Duchess duty, and swapped comrades for a dainty with a handled purse by the high-end labels, including, for instance, the Melier and so forth. So it goes on to say, talking about Q, sellout, wasteless, and crashed websites, tiny purses were officially in. So it goes on to say the petite purse trend reached its height, I guess this person is saying, in February 2019 with French label, forgive me for the pronunciation of that, Mini Chiquito, La Chiquito, a postage stamp size version of its best-selling handbag. So barely big enough to hold a couple of breath mints, the teeny tiny tote got its big LOLs on social media, where it drew comparisons to binder clips and Barbie accessories. So this particular line was a joke, seen as a joke. The bag was made for the runway, not for sale. Nevertheless, it inspired imitations. So Louis Vuitton and Prada soon introduced their own nano bags. Small bags have historically been mocked and derailed for their female wares with them. So this is my point that I'm getting to here. Hold on just a minute. Be right back. Okay. Small bags Does with talking about small bags here, does purse size matter for women? The purse has always been political. So it's a reflection of changing the economic realities that this person is saying and gender roles. While a large bag, however ugly or expensive, will always have a certain utilitarian value, small bags have historically been mocked and derided, and their female wears with them. So until the late 18th century, purses were small unisex accessories used to hold money and nothing else. They had more in common with wallets than handbags. They might be worn tucked in a pocket or dangled from a belt. At the court of Versailles, round-bottom drawstring bags, often made of velvet and intricately embroidered with the owner's coat of arms, held won gambling winnings or charitable donations in them. So according to Miss Gabrielle Adams, who attended Mass in the World Chapel on Pentecost in 1785, the lady who goes around to collect the alms in a small velvet purse was more elegantly dressed than any other person. So after the king had entered, she went around to the knights with a curtsy and the most graceful, presenting her little purse to each of them. Okay, so it says women didn't need to carry anything but cash in their purses at the time because their wide hoop petticoats allowed space for roomy pockets, while men had pockets of various sizes sewn in their coats, waistcoats, and breeches, sometimes including long bottle pockets concealed in coattails. Women's pockets were separate garments or worn on ribbon on the waist. Okay, so it goes on to say about the work bag, often a beautiful embroidered work of art, is in its own advertised as one's feminine accomplishment in the industry rather than one's fashion sense. So dramatic change in women's fashion of the late goes on to say that, more about the aspect of these things, giving more examples of the aspects of these things here being more dainty and then, practical. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying this. Again, sometimes, you got to separate what you think about something versus, what it is. And so, of course, it's one of those things people are going, especially with the aspects of women and identity, of course, that's one of those things with fashion, doing the cutting edge thing. But narrowing down to the aspects of this is something that, is going against a disdain of gender roles and a disdain of reflection of the realities of people being out of touch because they like small purses. That's a little far-fetched. So, of course, there's a lot of bold, outrageous things that happen in fashion, but, that can overshadow and over-trump the aspect and idea of fashion. But these things are something to think about when the aspects of fashion. Hold on, sweetie. And now I'm going to go and talk about handbags. I'll be right back. All right, so before I get in about handbags, as I was saying, my baby girl had to attend to her. You heard her in the background there. So, I don't know, you got to think about looking beyond the stereotype of what's typically thought of about a purse, and then also with the aspects of they have that lineage of being for formal wear, So it's kind of one of those things, why you were attacking something from what it was originally intended to be, when the aspects of a purse, when of course it came out of practicality and it evolved to, being associated with the elite class or going to, fancy occasions and so forth. But, that's what it's attached to. So, look at it for what it is. It's just one of those things. So, here we go. This is a brief, and of course the source will be provided for you. And this episode is entitled A Brief History of the Handbag. So handbags have been around for thousands of years, ever since man had something valuable to carry. So they evolved simultaneously with fashion and cultural norms. So, for thousands of years, bags were merely practical objects. Our earliest ancestors used handbags made from animal skins and plant fibers to carry hunting and gathering tools. So it was in the Middle Ages when bags first became a fashionable accessory. Bags became a form of self-expression and portable canvases showing the bag maker's craftsmanship. People began carrying drawstring pouches, embellishing with ornate embroidery and jewelry. Men of high social status showed off their wealth with luxurious purses tied to their waist. So we're going on to the Renaissance and beyond. So it says the first courier service began in Renaissance Italy, and messengers used sturdy bags made from tooled leather to carry papers and money between banks. So around 1497, Leonardo da Vinci tried his hand at fashion design and sketched the elaborate leather bag. So in 2012, as a tribute to the city of Florence, the fashion house of, forgive me for the pronunciation, Gironati, brought Leonardo's bag to life and named it La Prestoa, meaning the precious. That's quite neat. It looks very elaborate too. So, but Leonardo's bag was not designed for women. At that time, men generally carried money in a pouch made for cloth or hid that and attached it to a waist belt. So women wore drawstring purses as a fashion item or a recipient for small items. So grooms would give brides bags with embroideries that depicted love stories and poems as wedding gifts. They hung on drawstrings for women's girdles with items such as, for instance, a rosary. These were predecessors of the chastity, or not chastity, but a decorative belt hook or clasp worn at the waist with small sewing tools, watches, and other objects suspended from the chain. So 16th century. So 16th and 17th century fashion changed dramatically, and women started wearing extensive dresses that had a lot of fabric. So they could not wear their girdles, pouches, or outside their girdle with pouches outside of it because it would get stuck. It would get entangled in the fabric. So instead, they wore girdle pouches under their skirts. These later led to the invention of pockets, as I mentioned in Monday's episode. So it's quite interesting how the aspect of what they wore with the sleek apparel with cloth and pompe and grease, and how women and men with their cloaks and free-flowing aspect of fashion, then how that links to the ornate ideas of purses in the 18th century. So as a result, women were wearing slimmer and narrow dresses under which they could no longer carry girdle pouches. Women were also not concealing themselves so much, and being more loose and free-forming with what they wore So that's one of those things about the aspect of fashion and layers and how that comes out of necessity, because at the time, during the 16th and 17th century and so forth, even the elite, they wouldn't take baths so much, so they had to conceal the odors and everything. And so, hence extra layers here. And it's quite interesting how, those things come into the practicality of fashion. So, here we go with liberation. And handbags as a sign of women's liberation. Not only did the bags convey the social status of identity of the wearer, but they also revealed how much freedom one had to move in society. Both the men wore the earliest bags exclusively, as they were more likely to venture outside of the home. As women were at their home, they did not need to carry bags. So by the end of the 19th century, with the introduction of public train travel, women began socializing and traveling across the sea and land more independence. So the purse became a real symbol of feminine emancipation. Besides large pieces of luggage, the porters carried. Women needed smaller bags to keep tickets, papers, and money. So the luggage designers like Louis Vuitton began to fashion utilitarian bags that were essentially miniature suitcases with sturdy handles. Multiple compartments and snap closures. The bag was ideal for traveling and became very popular with doctors too. And with that, the handbag was born. So we're going on to the 20th century. So the 20th century was the most innovative period of the history of handbags. As women became increasingly, they started to mark their status and stepping into society, which is not particularly true, but women had their hand in society, before then, but it's not, as pronounced as it should be for the aspects of, as far as how history goes. Anyway, so in the 1930s, Art Deco influenced the design of handbags to a greater extent. So bags became more streamlined and geometric and had architectural frames and class metals. Because women were carrying more personal effects than before, the interiors of the 30s bag revealed a tight arrangement of many compartments customized to hold cigarettes, lipsticks, and coins. So during World War II, it started, many larger daytime bags started to pop up. So bags became hold-alls as we know them today. So women needed to conceal bulky possessions, including gas masks. So in the 50s, the 50s witnessed a significant shift in the perception and the use of modern handbags. The 50s made the decade of the Hermes name of bags, and then Hermes was inspired by Grace Kelly. So Grace Kelly inspired Hermes, elevating it to luxury items status. Good job, baby. So by the 70s, as more and more women entered the workforce, work-style bags also entered the mainstream, and the bags often mimicked a briefcase. All right, so it ends by saying this. So in the 70s, the history of handbags made a full circle. So men, once again, started carrying handbags again. And so as I was saying, and I'll talk about this in more detail as we go on into the month of January. So the aspect of how people think about their placement with work evolves also to that. That's another element when we think about the aspect of fashion in our lives. So with the invention of, technology being more useful, more everyday, more easily accessible, people are tending to take their work everywhere they go. So, I can see that with the aspect of same with men in the 70s starting, and then so No, not yet, honey. Hold on. With handbag, and linking it to here with computer bags, with taking your laptop where you need to go to do your business, and every so often with that, that's something how that the ideas of utilitarian using everyday use for what you're wearing comes back, and as even more. Hold on, baby. That's even more sensible, and something really think about how that circled back itself in the 70s. All right, so I'm going to end on this. I'd like to know what you all think, again, about the aspect of accessories like this, purses, handbags in our society. How do you, nay or yay, what do you think about its prevalence and culture? The links will be provided for you in this episode, how to reach out to me. But, email is the good ring of ticket to firsthand to get, instant feedback here. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye.